Hello, and welcome to Glass Weirdo Studio. In this video, I'll be showing you how I make my feather Murrini and apply it to a bead. There will be a list of equipment needed in the comments, but you will need 2 stainless steel mandrels I use for punties, white glass, clear glass, black glass, a masher tool, a graphite pad or marver tool, and some nippers to cut the Murrini when it's made. For the second part of this project, you'll need a rod of glass to make your base bead, a pair of tweezers to apply the Murrini, a flattening tool to spread the Murrini, and a raking tool. Let's get started. So first, on one of the punties, you're going to make a gather of clear glass. This is going to be the center of the Murrini once it's finished. You don't need a whole lot of glass. I don't make very long rods of this Murrini because I don't use it that often, but I always like to have some on hand. You can do this in any color you want, so long as the layers between the color is clear. I use white and black to make it look like an eagle feather once it's done. And just as a tip, when I put my glass on the punty, I will tip it slightly so that gravity will keep the glass at the end of the punty. It just helps a little bit and keeps more glass on your Murrini and not so much in the waste bin. Now we're going to take our masher tool and flatten that into a lollipop shape, not too thin. I usually do it as thick as the punty that it's on. Okay, so now you're going to cover either side of that lollipop with white glass without going over the edges, or you're going to lose your definition of the layers. You just want to cover either side. You don't want to encase it. And once I get these 2 layers on, the video will get sped up because you're just going to alternate back and forth between clear and white layers. So once this white glass is on either side, I'll be covering those white layers with clear, and then back to white, and so on. You want the layers to be almost or basically as thick as each other, so I'm just going to keep putting white glass on either side until that layer is as thick as the center. This is where you're going to need your graphite pad, because you're going to want to flatten each layer as it's applied. The easiest way that I found is keep the glass you're putting on closer to the center of the lollipop, I guess we'll call it. And this way, when you do press it down, you're not going to spread it past the edges. Just adding a bit more glass to make it more uniform. Flattening it out. And now doing the same to the opposite side. So this is going to get sped up in a moment, which I will be picking up the clear rod and then covering each of the white sides with clear. Same way to do every single layer. It's repetitive and sometimes it's very boring, so I'm going to speed it up so you don't have to go through the torture of watching me do each layer. Right now we have a sandwich of clear in the middle, white on either side. So now I'm covering the white with clear. Again, not going past the edges. And flattening it after I put the glass on. And then I'm going to switch back once that's done and cover both those clear sides with white. Once I get to the last two layers, it will be slowed down so you can see the layers more clear than having this sped up all the way. And this is my basic Murrini. It's about 11 or 12 layers. I normally do much bigger Murrini with more layers, and it just makes it look more of a fluffy feather. Okay, so here's the final layer. I had covered one of the sides of clear with white, and the other I'm going to cover with black. And this will be the top of the eagle feather. Don't forget to keep this whole gather warm as you do this, because you don't want it to crack, because then you're going to have to start all over again. Believe me, I know. Okay, and there are all of our layers. And now I am going to attach a punty onto the other side. Try and get it as close to being level as possible with your first punty. Makes it a lot easier for pulling. And now we're just going to really heat up this gather. Not too fast, because you don't want your white glass spreading all over and becoming a big ball. You need to keep those layers defined. So we're just going to slowly and gently heat up the whole gather. And if it starts to become a little too round, just flatten each side as you would as if you were putting more glass on, using your marver tool. And this is why I love having my graphite pad, because you need both hands for doing this. Now See, my one side is getting a little too round, so I'm just going to take that over to the marver and flatten it to get me back to my nice rectangle shape so that that white glass doesn't start moving and covering the clear glass layers. And when I do start pulling, you'll notice that the black isn't going to reach all the way, which is absolutely fine because I use white feathers in my project as well. However, if you do get a lot of rod that way, all you have to do is put a black dot on your bead, then put the Murrini under it, and you'll have the same effect so long as you melt the Murrini all the way in. So I'm starting to pull. You want to pull straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the same thickness because I use multiple feathers on my beads. And a lot of times I like them when they're two different sizes. And you'll see at the end, I'll show you a bead I made with a much bigger Murrini, a lot more layers. And it does end up being kind of a rectangle shape, which is odd for Murrini sometimes, but I think you'll like the effect at the end. I know it's very popular. And I've got a couple different thicknesses there, which is what I like. Keeping the other end warm. And now I'm just going to remove the one punty and we'll wait for this to cool down so that I can cut it up into slices. And that is what you see, the defined layers in between. The clear in between the white, it looks really effective on a bead and I quite like it. And now we're going to make the bead. I just went ahead and made a base bead so that you don't have to sit there and watch me and whoop! This is exactly why you want to put more Murrini out than what you're going to need. I actually use a coffee cup heater for my Murrini. It helps heat it up just a lot faster when trying to apply it. It doesn't get it hot enough, but it keeps it from popping when you're putting it in the flame. So you just heat up where you want to put it, tap it down to make sure it's not going to pop off on you. And then I use the spreading tool to just flatten it. You don't want it to come up into a ball because you're going to lose those layers. And now we're going to attach one to the opposite side. Heat up the Murrini. Heat the bead up where you want it. Touch. And push down. And that one actually did crack on me, but that's okay. I'm just going to spread it out to flatten it out more. You can melt these all the way in. I don't like to. I actually like the effect of them being raised, but you might like it the opposite way. I'm just taking my flattening tool and kind of rocking it back and forth. It spreads out the feather better, but you just want to do it gently. You don't want to mash it into a form you can't recognize what it is. And right now it doesn't look like a feather, but we're getting there. Just gently rock back and forth and melt it in until you're happy with the result. And now we're going to take our raking tool. This is where it becomes a feather. You're going to heat up your Murrini just enough to move the glass, and then we're going to pull the black through the white and clear layers. Just gently, a little bit at a time works wonders. If you do it all at once, your glass is too hot. And then I just use my raking tool for, sometimes I'll bend the end of it, or just to make it a little thinner. And now we're going to do the other side. On this side, I actually don't get enough of the black, but I'll show you how to fix that. Just gently pulling it down. The black line in the center of the feather really helps define the layers. I'm going to flatten that end because it was starting to stick up a little too much. Just checking it over, and here's where I realize I haven't pulled the black through as much as I like, so I'm going to go back. Just flatten out that end because it came up on me. It's not as round as I'd like. Okay, so I'm just going to heat up the Murrini that I didn't like and just do the same thing. Just pull the black down through the line I've already made. And it just gives a little extra oomph, I guess we'll call it. So that even when they're small, people can look and say, oh, that's a feather. And that is basically that. Once it's annealed, I'll show you the end result. And here is the finished bead with the feather Murrini that was made at the torch. And next I'll show you the one I did with more of a 25 layer Murrini. This one is about 11 layers. And it has 2 feathers on it. You'll see that the layers are much more of a fluffy feather. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching, and like and subscribe if you want to see any more videos from me. Thanks very much.